In the quiet town of Maplewood, an elderly woman thought she was facing harassment from faceless cowards. What she didn't know was that her greatest protector was already by her side, her son. The Brotherhood, a racist clan fueled by hate, believed they had chosen their next victim. But they didn't know the truth. Her son was an FBI agent. Tonight's story will take you through fear, family, and the unshakable power of justice. Stick with me to the end, and don't forget, like this video, comment your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. The town of Maplewood was the kind of place where everyone seemed to know everyone. Narrow streets lined with oak trees, front porches with rocking chairs, and neighbors who waved whether they liked you or not. But beneath the surface of charm, there was another layer, one darker, unspoken, and dangerous. Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a 72-year-old widow, lived at the edge of town in a weather-beaten farmhouse her late husband built with his own hands. She was known for her warm smile, her homemade peach pies, and the way she never missed Sunday service. Evelyn was respected by some, tolerated by others, and hated by a few. Not because of anything she had done, only because of the color of her skin. The Carter family had endured whispers, insults, and stares for decades. Evelyn had learned to walk past it, to hold her head high. But the times were changing, and not for the better. Over the past few weeks, Evelyn noticed things around her property. Small, chilling warnings. A broken mailbox. Strange tire marks across her lawn. A slashed tire on her truck. At first, she thought it was neighborhood kids. But when a crude message appeared spray-painted on her fence, "Get out," Evelyn knew this wasn't random. The whispers in town spoke of a group calling themselves the Brotherhood. A racist clan that thrived on fear and intimidation, recruiting in secret, meeting in barns and backrooms. And now, it seemed, their eyes had fallen on Evelyn. Still, Evelyn never told her son. Michael Carter had left Maplewood years ago. To the town, he was just Evelyn's boy who had moved to the city for work. To his mother, he was her pride and joy, a man who had made something of himself. What no one knew, not even Evelyn, was that Michael wasn't just working an office job. He was an undercover FBI agent, specializing in dismantling extremist groups. And while Evelyn tried to shoulder the threats alone, fate was about to bring Michael back home, just in time for the storm that was coming. Evelyn Carter woke before dawn, as she always did. Her mornings were quiet rituals, grinding coffee beans, humming an old hymn, stepping onto her porch to greet the first light of day. To anyone passing by, it looked like the peaceful life of a retired grandmother. But peace had become fragile, slipping through her hands like water. That morning, Evelyn froze when she spotted something nailed to her fence. A wooden plank, crudely carved with a single word, "Leave." The letters were jagged, burned into the wood with hate. Her hands trembled as she pulled it down. She glanced toward the road, but saw no one. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it suffocates. At church later that week, Evelyn noticed the stares were sharper, colder. A few neighbors averted their eyes, but others didn't bother hiding their smirks. Rumors had a way of spreading, and Evelyn sensed the whispers weren't just about her age or her loneliness anymore. Something bigger was at play. One evening, her friend Martha stopped by with a pie. But before leaving, Martha leaned in, lowering her voice. "Evelyn, I heard the Brotherhood's been meeting again. Out at Miller's barn. Folks say they've got new blood, angry young men with nothing to lose." Evelyn swallowed hard. She wanted to dismiss it as small-town gossip, but her gut told her otherwise. The messages, the vandalism, the feeling of being watched, it all lined up. That night, as the wind rattled her shutters, Evelyn sat in her kitchen with the lights off, staring at the dark beyond her window. She clutched the old family Bible, whispering prayers under her breath. She didn't know how much longer she could face this alone. But what Evelyn didn't know was that help was already on its way. Miles away, in a city office filled with maps, case files, and photographs of extremist symbols, Michael Carter was reading a report. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the name of a new target group gaining attention, the Brotherhood of Maplewood. For the first time in years, Michael felt a chill he couldn't ignore. The town in that report wasn't just another assignment. It was home. And if the Brotherhood was making moves there, his mother was in danger. Michael didn't hesitate. He packed his files, booked his leave, and made one silent vow. If they're coming for her, they'll have to go through me. The old screen door creaked on its hinges as Evelyn stood on her porch, watering the petunias her late husband once planted. The morning air smelled of damp earth and honeysuckle, but Evelyn couldn't shake the unease that had been clinging to her like a shadow. Then, down the gravel road, she saw a familiar figure approaching, a tall man in a dark jacket, carrying a duffel bag. For a moment, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. But then his voice carried across the yard. "Morning, Mama." Evelyn's breath caught. "Michael." Her son climbed the porch steps, his smile boyish despite the years etched into his face. Evelyn's hands shook as she reached for him, pulling him into a tight embrace. "Oh, Lord, it's been too long." "I know," Michael said softly, holding her close. "Work's been busy. But I'm here now." They sat inside over steaming mugs of coffee, Evelyn's kitchen filling with the warmth of reunion. She studied her son, noticing the lines of stress in his face, the way he carried himself with alertness even at rest. He looked like a man who had seen too much. "You didn't tell me you were coming," Evelyn said. Michael smiled faintly. "Wanted to surprise you. Besides, I figured it was time I came home for a while." Evelyn's heart swelled, but in the back of her mind, the fear lingered. She didn't tell Michael about the threats, the vandalism, or the Brotherhood. She didn't want to burden him. To her, he was still her boy, the child she raised, not the man she had no idea was carrying the weight of the FBI on his shoulders. Later that evening, Michael strolled through town, reacquainting himself with familiar streets. He noticed the way conversations hushed when he passed. The sideways glances. The faint graffiti on a back alley wall, a crude symbol he instantly recognized from his files. He filed it away silently. His instincts screamed that this was more than small-town malice. The Brotherhood was here, hiding in plain sight. That night, Michael lay awake in his old childhood room, the ceiling fan humming above him. He listened to the crickets outside, but every so often he caught something else, a car slowing by the house, footsteps on gravel. He rose quietly, checking the windows, his FBI training kicking in. He couldn't tell his mother yet. Not until he had proof. Not until he knew exactly who was behind this. Evelyn might have thought her son came home to visit. But Michael knew the truth. He came home to protect. And soon, the Brotherhood would learn who they had chosen to target. The town of Maplewood had always been good at keeping secrets. Behind polite smiles and Sunday greetings, whispers spread like wildfire. And lately, the whispers had a name, the Brotherhood. Evelyn heard it in the pews at church. She felt it in the way Mrs. Callahan pulled her children closer when Evelyn walked by. Even at the grocery store, two men muttered near the bread aisle, their eyes darting toward her before lowering their voices. Something was stirring. And Evelyn knew it wasn't just idle gossip. That night, Evelyn's phone rang. She answered, only to be met with silence. Then, a low chuckle. "You don't belong here, old woman." The line went dead. Evelyn sat frozen, clutching the receiver, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to call the sheriff, but a bitter memory stopped her. The last time she'd reported a threat, the deputy just shrugged. "Kids being kids, Mrs. Carter. Don't take it so serious." But this wasn't kids. This was hate, organized and hungry. Meanwhile, Michael was quietly piecing things together. He walked the streets late at night, noting which houses had the Brotherhood symbols carved into fences or painted on trash cans. He lingered at the diner, listening to conversations. And one name kept coming up: Ray Miller. Ray had always been trouble. The kind of man who carried grudges like medals. He ran the old feed store, but everyone knew his real business was intimidation. With his barn on the outskirts of town, Ray had plenty of space for secret meetings. Michael suspected it was the Brotherhood's gathering place. At the diner, Michael overheard two men whispering in the corner booth. "She won't last long out there alone," one said. "The boys are planning something bigger this time," the other replied. "A message." Michael's jaw tightened. He stirred his coffee, careful not to reveal he was listening, but every word fueled the fire inside him. Back at the farmhouse, Evelyn sat on the porch, watching the night swallow her yard. A sudden crash shattered the quiet. Her mailbox, smashed again, lying twisted on the ground. Headlights flared before a truck sped off, tires screeching. Evelyn rose, but before she could react, Michael was already out the door. He sprinted to the road, his eyes tracking the fading taillights. He memorized the vehicle's make and model, his agent's mind cataloging every detail. When he returned, Evelyn stood trembling, trying to look composed. "It's just kids," she muttered. "They'll get tired eventually." Michael looked at her, his expression unreadable. He wanted to tell her the truth, that these weren't kids, that this was far more dangerous than she realized. But instead, he simply placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, Mama," he said quietly. "They won't touch you. Not while I'm here." And though Evelyn didn't know it, her son was already drawing lines in the sand. The Brotherhood thought they were circling prey. But they were walking straight into a trap. The attacks had been whispers at first. Then vandalism. Then late-night phone calls. But on a cool Friday evening, the Brotherhood pushed past warnings and made it personal. Evelyn was sitting in her kitchen, hands folded over her Bible, when the windows rattled. At first, she thought it was the wind. Then came the sound, a deafening shatter. Glass exploded across the floor as a brick sailed through her front window. Evelyn gasped, clutching her chest. On the brick, wrapped in tape, was a note scrawled in thick black marker. "Leave now, or we'll make you." Michael was out back when he heard the crash. He rushed inside to find his mother frozen in place, shards of glass glittering at her feet. His eyes scanned the note, and a cold fury settled in his chest. This wasn't intimidation anymore. This was escalation. Michael walked his mother to the couch, his voice calm but firm. "Stay here. Don't move." Then he grabbed a flashlight and stormed into the night. The woods behind the farmhouse were thick and silent, but Michael's instincts guided him. He crouched low, listening. In the distance, he caught it: Snickers, the faint crunch of boots on leaves, the metallic clink of beer bottles. He edged closer until he could see them: 3 young men, hoods up, standing by a pickup truck parked at the tree line. They were laughing, boasting about the brick, about teaching the old woman a lesson. Michael's fists curled. He wanted to reveal himself right then, to show them exactly who they were dealing with. But his training told him patience. If he scared them off now, they'd only return stronger. He needed the whole picture. He needed the Brotherhood's nest. Quietly, he slipped back to the house. Evelyn was still trembling, holding her Bible like a shield. "Michael, what if they come back?" she whispered. "They will," Michael said softly, kneeling in front of her. His eyes, steady and unyielding, met hers. "But they won't win, Mama. Not this time." That night, Evelyn lay awake, every creak of the house making her flinch. Michael, however, sat by the window, his duffel bag at his feet. Inside were the tools of his real life: documents, encrypted phone, a concealed firearm. For years, he had kept his secret from her, letting her believe he worked an ordinary job. But tonight had shown him the truth. The time for hiding was almost over. The Brotherhood had declared war on his family, and Michael Carter was ready to end it. The days that followed were tense. Evelyn tried to carry on as normal, tending her garden, baking pies for the church fundraiser, but every sound outside made her flinch. She wasn't the kind of woman to show fear, but Michael could see it in her eyes. And the Brotherhood could sense it too. On Saturday night, the storm finally broke. Evelyn was preparing tea when floodlights suddenly blazed through her windows. A convoy of trucks rumbled up her driveway, engines growling. Doors slammed. Dozens of boots crunched against gravel. Michael moved quickly. "Stay in the back room, Mama," he whispered, steady and calm. "Don't come out until I tell you." Through the curtains, Evelyn caught a glimpse: men in hooded jackets, some with masks, carrying bats and chains. They spread across the yard like wolves circling prey. One of them shouted, his voice dripping with hate, "Come on out, old woman. We warned you." Michael stepped onto the porch, his figure silhouetted against the light. His voice was calm, but it carried authority. "You don't want to do this." The men laughed. "And who's gonna stop us?" "You." Michael reached into his jacket slowly, pulling out a leather badge case. He flipped it open, the gold glint of the FBI seal catching the floodlight. Then, with a swift motion, he drew his firearm and leveled it steadily at the ringleader. "I'm Special Agent Michael Carter, FBI Counterterrorism Division," he declared, his voice sharp as steel. "You're all under federal investigation for domestic terrorism, hate crimes, and conspiracy." The laughter died instantly. Faces fell. A few men shifted nervously. One spat on the ground, trying to look tough, but his hands trembled. "You're bluffing," he muttered. From the shadows, black SUVs roared down the road. Their lights flashed red and blue as armed federal agents poured out, surrounding the property with tactical precision. Radios crackled. Commands were shouted. "Drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them." Chaos erupted. Some of the Brotherhood members froze, dropping bats and chains. Others bolted for their trucks, only to be tackled to the ground by agents. Ray Miller, the ringleader, stood stiff with rage, his face pale under the flashing lights. "You set us up," he hissed at Michael. "No," Michael said coldly. "You set yourself up. All I did was watch and wait." Within minutes, the yard was filled with handcuffed men lined up against their trucks. Evelyn peeked from the back door, her eyes wide with shock as she watched her son command a scene she never imagined. Michael holstered his weapon, turned toward her, and finally let the truth settle. "I'm sorry I never told you, Mama," he said gently. "But this is who I am. This is what I do." Evelyn stepped onto the porch, tears glistening in her eyes. "My boy, my Michael." And for the first time in weeks, Evelyn felt safe. The Brotherhood had thought they were hunting an old woman. Instead, they had walked straight into the arms of the FBI. The morning after the arrests, Maplewood was buzzing like a hornet's nest. News vans crowded the courthouse square. Reporters shouted questions, snapping photos as federal agents escorted the Brotherhood's leaders inside in shackles. For years, the town had whispered about the Klan, but fear kept mouths shut. Now, the truth was out for the world to see. The Brotherhood wasn't invincible. They were criminals, and they were finished. Evelyn sat on her porch, the farmhouse finally quiet. The broken window was boarded up, the mailbox replaced, and for the first time in weeks, she felt she could breathe again. Neighbors who once looked away now stopped by, some with casseroles, some with apologies. Martha came over with tears in her eyes. "Evelyn, we should have spoken up sooner. We let fear keep us silent. I'm so sorry." Evelyn smiled softly, resting a hand on her friend's. "What matters is that it's over. Hate doesn't get the last word." Inside, Michael was on the phone with his office, giving his final report. He spoke calmly, professionally, but when he hung up and looked at his mother, the weight lifted from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he wasn't just an FBI agent. He was a son coming home. Later that evening, Michael and Evelyn sat on the porch together, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and violet. Evelyn reached over, squeezing his hand. "I thought you were just working in an office," she said with a chuckle. "Turns out you've been carrying the weight of the world." Michael smiled, his eyes soft. "I didn't tell you because I wanted you to have peace. But, Mama, I couldn't let them hurt you. Not now. Not ever." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, but this time they were tears of pride, not fear. "Your father would be so proud of you. And so am I." The crickets sang, the air was warm, and for the first time in weeks, Maplewood felt like home again. The Brotherhood was gone. Justice had been served. And Evelyn Carter, the woman they tried to break, stood stronger than ever, shielded by faith, community, and the unshakable love of her son. The Brotherhood believed they could intimidate and destroy a defenseless woman. But what they didn't see was the love of a son, and the strength of justice, standing guard. Evelyn Carter endured fear, hate, and silence, but in the end, the truth shone brighter. Her son, Michael, revealed his true identity as an FBI agent, and the Klan that once terrorized the town was dismantled. Justice was served. Family bonds stood unbroken. And Maplewood found peace again. If you were moved by this story, please support this channel by liking this video, leaving a comment, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. Together, we keep these powerful stories alive.